in this house.
Naam, ni kati tu ya taswira ya hali halisi ilivyokuwa hapo jana mtazamaji, lakini mwisho kabisa ni ruhusu tupate mkubwa kabisa. Hivi sasa tume ya IEBC, idara ya polisi na tume ya NCIC basi zinazungumzia tu kuhusiana na usalama na ghasia na fujo zilizoshuhudiwa. Tusikize.
Which have already been dispatched to our warehouses in Nyandarua County. Yesterday, we completed the training of all the election officials. So our officers are properly trained and they are ready to conduct elections as per the regulations. Of more importance is the issue of the voters register. We have certified the register that will be used in Ol-Kalou. That is the voters register. And this register is currently displayed at every polling station, so that the citizens of Ol-Kalou can verify and check if their names are there and if they are eligible to vote in the respective polling stations. As a commission, we continue working with our partners to offer voter education to the voters of Ol-Kalou so that they understand how to exercise their rights. And we continue with stakeholder engagement up to tomorrow, where our team of commissioners will also be in Ol-Kalou to meet with stakeholders, to meet with the candidates and their agents, so that we agree on the final rules. The Commission reminds all stakeholders that the campaign has officially ended yesterday on Monday, 13th of July 2026 at 6 p.m. in line with the gazetted election timelines. And therefore, we request that any form of campaigning or engagement of voters after that time has ended is prohibited. And anybody engaged in further campaigns contrary to the laws is committing an electoral offense and is in breach of the Electoral Code of Conduct. And as a result, if we find anybody who is engaging in campaigns beyond the gazetted timeline, that person will face the consequences. In terms of the polling day activities, we wish to remind the people of Ol-Kalou that all the registered voters in Ol-Kalou constituency, they must turn up with their national ID cards that are valid. And for the case of the passport, they must verify and confirm that their passport is valid, it has not expired, because these are the primary documents that will be used to identify each of the eligible voter, each of the voter who is in our digital register. In terms of identification, the actual identification of the voters during that day, from morning when we open the polling stations, once you show up with your ID or your passport that is valid, we shall use the biometric means to identify and authenticate those voters. Biometric means your fingerprints or your facial features, which we have captured in our database. Because the register we are using will be the digital register that is integrated in our KIMS kit. As required by law, we have gazetted the register for Ol-Kalou constituency. And that register, I wish to assure the people of Ol-Kalou and indeed Kenyans that that register is secure. And we certified that register on 5th of June 2026. So the register is published in the Kenya Gazette. It is a public document. You can access it there. And for those of you who are in Ol-Kalou, the register is already displayed in each of the polling stations where you will be voting. So we have several copies that have been printed already and dispatched to those polling stations. And the law requires we do this 7 days before the election. So we have complied with the law. So anybody who claims that the register has been manipulated is spreading false, misleading, and unsupported rumors. So we urge the citizens to ignore any such persons, be they politicians or activists or any other representative of anybody in this republic. As IEBC, we take the issue of the register seriously, and we make sure that it's only the authentic register that is being used during these elections. That, of course, goes to also the issue of identity cards. We heard through a section of the media, and we have investigated this matter, where certain politician has urged the citizens of Ol-Kalou not to show up with their IDs or their passports. That is completely misleading, and that matter the Commission is dealing with it decisively. Opening and closing of the polling stations. Ladies and gentlemen, again, as per the law and our regulations, the polling stations open at 6 a.m. and they close at 5 p.m. And therefore, any station that for one reason or another that is justifiable is not open by 6 and there's a delay, we shall compensate that time which is lost and ensure that those people who turn up and who remain at the polling stations as late as 5 p.m. and they are on the queue, they will be granted the opportunity to continue to exercise their right to elect their member of parliament. So we shall not bar anybody who comes late, as long as you are at the polling station by 5 p.m. latest, in the evening, that is. So anybody who comes past 5 p.m. will not be allowed to join the queue in order to vote. So all those people who are eligible must come between 6 when we open and 5 p.m. when we close. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, and indeed fellow Kenyans, the use of mobile phones in the polling booth is prohibited. You heard some time back when we conducted the elections in other electoral areas, we saw one individual had taken a picture of their ballot paper after voting. They took pictures of the marked ballots and circulated it on the internet. We wish to remind Kenyans and indeed the voters of Ol-Kalou that please do not take a picture of your ballot paper once you mark it, once you select the person you want to be your member of parliament. This is because the sanctity and the secrecy of the vote requires that you keep it secret. That's why it's very, very important that we facilitate you to vote by way of secret ballot. So it will defeat the purpose if you again make that ballot public. And it is against Section 7 of the Election Offences Act. You shall actually be prosecuted. And if you are found guilty, you will pay a fine a fine of up to 1 million Kenya shillings. So we need to tell Kenyans this matter is very serious. Besides that 1 million Kenya shillings, the offending party can also be imprisoned for a term of not exceeding 3 years for a simple act of taking a picture of your vote, either to show allegiance to whoever you are voting for or for some other benefit. I don't know what motivates people to expose who they voted for. So that is discouraged, it is prohibited, it's against the law, and it has consequences. In terms of assisted voters, you know, in some instances, we have those voters who, for one reason or another, are not able to go through the voting process, and they require special assistance, be they people with disability or some form of illiteracy. The law allows that those voters can be assisted by a person of their choice. So nobody should force anybody to be assisted. If they wish to be assisted and our officials have verified that the person requires assistance, let that person choose a person of his or her choice to assist that person. We also wish to inform members of the public and the voting populations of Ol-Kalou that no one person is allowed to assist more than one voter. We will not see a situation where one person is hovering around the polling stations and purporting to be assisting one voter after another, one voter after another. It is only one person to assist one voter, end of story. So again, that is something that we wish to communicate to the people of Ol-Kalou to be on the lookout. In terms of accreditation of agents and conducting and the conduct of anybody within the polling stations, and indeed our constituency tallying center, each participating political party or candidate is entitled to appoint one agent at each polling station and one chief agent at the tallying center. And I repeat again, each candidate or political party is allowed to appoint only one agent at each polling station and one chief agent at the tallying center. The tallying center will be at the constituency headquarters. And therefore, we shall not allow anybody roaming around our polling stations purporting to be agents if they are not appointed by the political parties or the candidates themselves, and they must be one. And our office gives them accreditation badges. So anybody who does not possess an accreditation badge should not be seen roaming around our polling stations. The police, the security will take action, and our officials will take action. So in that regard, in the last by-elections we conducted in the country, in Mbere, Malava, Kasipul, Unguja, Magarini, the commission observed a phenomenon that is very much disturbing. There are some Kenyans, whether politicians or non-politicians, who purport to behave like super agents. And therefore they come to our polling stations and try to disturb the peace or the peaceful conduct of the elections in those stations. We want to state categorically here that we will not allow anybody, whether it's a senior politician or a leader in this country, who has not been cleared and accredited by IEBC, to come with their security or their supporters to try and disturb the peace at the polling station or even overrun the polling station. We have asked the National Police Service and all security agencies to help us to deal with this phenomenon of super agents, who are mainly some of the senior politicians in this country. So we will not like to see that happening in Ol-Kalou, and should it happen, we will take decisive action against those individuals. We also wish to remind that the public and members of the various political parties and supporters of the respective candidates that we shall not admit any person who is wearing a badge, clothing or symbol or any other item signifying support for a political party or candidate. The campaigns, as we have said, the campaign period ended yesterday at 6 p.m. So we do not expect campaigns at our polling stations when citizens are supposed to show up in a neutral environment to vote, cast their vote, and go home peacefully and wait for the results. So anybody who is seen in party colors or paraphernalia should be sent away from our polling stations, which should remain neutral from 6 up to 5 when we close. We also remind the voters that once you cast your vote, please exit the polling station immediately and to allow other voters who are queuing the opportunity to also exercise their right to cast their vote and elect their leaders. So once you vote, please go home. Go to your comfort of your home or your farm or your shop and wait for the process to complete at 5. Once we close, the counting will begin in front of all the accredited agents and the candidates themselves. So the order at the polling station, the commission wishes to remind all stakeholders of the following legal provisions regarding the order at the polling stations. The presiding officer is responsible for conducting the elections at the polling station and maintaining law and doing so, especially for security. The presiding officer at that particular polling station is assigned 2 police officers who will be responsible for a radius of about 400 square meters, which is the jurisdiction within which we conduct the elections. And therefore, the police officers assigned to the presiding officer maintain law and order. And therefore, we urge the voters in Ol-Kalou to ensure that they respect our polling stations, they respect our officers, and that they follow their instructions on how to conduct themselves while they are within the polling stations. And therefore, within the polling station, anybody who is engaging in disorderly conduct or fails to comply with lawful instructions of the presiding officer will be ordered to leave the precincts, and necessary actions will be taken to discourage such kind of conduct. We have, in each of the polling stations, we have put the rules there on display. So we urge the citizens and the voters of Ol-Kalou to read, to familiarize themselves with those rules, and make sure they adhere with those rules. So the presiding officer is in charge and will take any necessary lawful action to secure the polling station and to ensure voting proceeds peacefully and uninterrupted and until it's closed. So those people who sometimes are inclined to try and storm any polling station, just be warned that action will be taken, because we'll have adequate security protecting every polling station and allowing citizens to come and cast their vote peacefully without any disturbance. In terms of security arrangements, you can see the IG is here with his 2 deputies. We have the DCI. They will speak more about the security arrangements for this, to secure the elections, to ensure that there's peace, there's tranquility, and the voters of Ol-Kalou exercise their rights peacefully to elect their leaders. So as a commission, I would like to thank the close collaboration we've had with the National Police, with other commissions present here, including National Cohesion and Integration Commission, to ensure that we make all the necessary arrangements, including security, so that the by-election in Ol-Kalou succeeds. So I'll allow IG later on to speak on the security arrangements in place. But we, as a commission, would also like to note that, with concern, that there have been incidences that have raised a red flag and concerns to us as a commission as we carry out our mandate to facilitate Kenyans to elect their elected representatives. We've seen situations where, in some cases, goons are present in our electoral areas, are mobilized to intimidate and to disrupt the peaceful campaigns and the peaceful business of the people in those affected electoral areas. Ol-Kalou has not been spared either. There are those reports of incidences of goons roaming around, and of course facilitated by some of the actors or players. We wish to call upon all those people, political parties, the candidates themselves and their political supporters, to refrain from any acts that will constitute violence and a breach of the electoral code of conduct. Because we want this election in Ol-Kalou to be the most peaceful and the most successful, that is conducted in an atmosphere that will allow a credible, free, fair, and transparent elections to happen in Ol-Kalou. The code of conduct, ladies and gentlemen, will continue to be enforced. As you have seen, in the last few days, we have summoned some of those politicians who have been accused of engaging in some electoral malpractices. We have taken action on some of them, including fining some of them and requesting them to again sign the political decency code with us. Other cases are ongoing, and we will be updating the nation on what actions we are taking. So the Election Code of Conduct Committee is still in place. It will work until after the election has been concluded and the results announced. So any breaches of the Electoral Code of Conduct, we urge the public to report to the Commission so that we take firm and stern action against those perpetrators. So, as I conclude, in terms of result management and declaration, after the close of the polling stations at 5 p.m., all the presiding officers will commence the process of counting the vote in front and in full view of agents, observers, and the media. I believe you'll be there as members of the fourth estate to observe what's happening and to report. This counting will be done. The ballot boxes will be opened, the ballot papers will be counted, and the results tabulated at each of the polling stations in an open and transparent process. And to enhance transparency, the agents present will be allowed to take photographs of official result form 34A. Let us distinguish what I said before. Your ballot paper, the one you mark as a voter, that is sacred, and it's secret. I've said sacred, and it's also secret. So that is the document that we do not want anybody to take pictures of and circulate. But where we tabulate and record the results, that is from 34A, agents can take pictures and send to their candidates or their political parties. A copy of the result form, that same Form 34A, a carbonated copy, will also be pasted at each of the polling stations. Whether it's in a classroom, it will be pasted on the door of that classroom for everybody to see, because there's nothing we're hiding. It will be as transparent as that. Returning officers will thereafter receive the results, that is at the constituency tallying center. They will verify, collate, and announce the constituency level results. So I know results will be known mostly by the party agents and the political parties. But please do not declare yourself the winner or your candidate. It is only the authorized officer, in this case for Ol-Kalou, the returning officer, who will declare the winner in the presence of agents and accredited observers. So as I conclude, in fact, on the issue of the results, members of the public and the media as well, you can access the results in our public portal, which will be accessible to the public. You will click as we upload the results online. You can be able to follow the results and tabulate for yourself, so that you know that what we are doing is a transparent, accountable, free and fair election that will meet the highest standards of credibility. A call to action as I conclude. The Commission calls upon all polling officials in Ol-Kalou to discharge their duties with integrity, impartiality, and full adherence to the Code of Conduct. And we are also telling you that we do not spare our officers who engage in any misconduct, who commit any election offense. Such officers will be arrested